Okay, we discussed in the first part more the European framework. The game of this second part is to focus on Brussels. You already know what is the general trend, so let's go directly into the debate. What is a bit our theoretical framework? What is for us the Brussels research system? We want to propose a dimension and then an analysis, as we just did for FP participation in general. What is the role of FP participation in the case of Brussels? We already discussed a lot about the knowledge-based economy, the importance of the Lisbon Agenda 3%, so I will skip this because it was just in the debate and would be a bit redundant. What is important just to say is that when we discussed about a core of most competitive cities in terms of FP participation, Brussels is part of that core. From a theoretical point of view, we want to combine two major aspects that are quite well known in the literature. The first one is the regional innovation system. The importance of innovation for growth and economic development is largely known, and the importance of conceive innovation as a process in a systemic way. So it's not just the firm innovating, but there are also firms, there are governments, there are intermediaries like in Noviaris that are linking regional government with university firms and all these kind of bodies. Governments in the case of Belgium means different tiers from federal, community, and regional mainly in our case. The second aspect is a paper that spoke about global pipelines and local buzz. The idea is that when you want to be an innovative milieu, a context where innovation happens, the importance of having linkages with those that are elsewhere, that are not just in your city, in your area, are important. The capacity to attract and be part of those networks is important to promote the innovativeness of your city. We want to try to combine these two approaches. So what's going on in Brussels and how Brussels is able to establish linkages, and the FP projects are an excellent case because it's a way to develop research with partners located somewhere else. Three objectives: map the different performance of different kind of actors, because Brussels is just one name, but there are many different research actors in Brussels. Try to define and see how it works, the Brussels research system. We will propose a definition, which is something that we'd like to discuss with you, and how we are, the Brussels city is able to cooperate. First, typologies of actors. Who is in Brussels? We identified 7 different categories. The first 2 are what we call the European actors. The European Commission, but the Commission means different things. There is also the European Parliament, and there are also for research, the most interesting case is the joint research centers that are legally registered in Brussels, but then they are spread around Europe. Most of them in ISPRA, but then in other places. But these are institutional bodies. We have also many other different kind of European association, which means what is commonly called as lobbies, but delegation, Brussels-based branches of multinationals, association, trade unions, business associations that sometimes take part of FP project as administrative support, as coordination, as an institutional partnership, even if they don't really carry out research activities. On the other hand, we have also what we call the Belgian actors, governments, which means federal, regional, communities, and all the related agencies and bodies referred to the governments. We have universities and public research institutes that we consider in the same category. Private firms, of course. Some public-private organizations that try to combine in a systemic perspective all these kind of actors. And then we added a seventh label for those not fitting in any of the previous category, and it happens always. This is our definition of the Brussels research system. Statistically speaking, it means 4 districts. The Brussels capital regions, where we are now, the 2 districts of Halle-Vilvoorde and Leuven that are part of the Vlaams Brabant, and the Wallonian Brabant. This corresponds to the old province of Brabant that was up to the 90s. Why this definition? Well, first, we think that the Brussels capital regions, it's the core of an urban area which is a bit bigger than the administrative boundaries. Second, we want to include the 2 major universities of Leuven and Louvain-la-Neuve to know also if they are part of this system. And then because we know that many firms are located just out of the boundary of the Brussels capital regions. They are located in Halle, Vilvoorde, Nivelles, Waterloo, with their branches. Clearly, this is a very complicated governance. If we start looking to all the federal, regional, provincial, municipal levels, the governance becomes pretty complicated. I think that here everybody knows the map of Belgium, so I will, you understand what I mean. The indicator is what we discussed just in the first presentation. So FP participation of all the actors that are legally located in one of those 4 districts. So Brussels capital region, Halle-Vilvoorde, Leuven, and Nivelles. The period is FP5 to FP7, and the 3 teams we considered. What is important, just to add in terms of data, we are able to identify the 7 categories of actors in Brussels, but we are not able to understand the partners elsewhere. So if there is a partnership between a Brussels university with someone in Prague, we were not able to map all the other actors because sometimes it's difficult. These are the key results. So I go straight forward to the discussion. We have a positive performance in all the teams. We can see here well, let me start with this very complex table, but I explain step by step. This is each of the districts we are considering. Here is the rest of all the other FP participation, not in Belgium, but not in the Brussels research system. And this is the overall score of Belgium. We can see from FP5 up to FP7 for each of the team. The first result is that the Brussels capital regions is by far the core in terms of FP participation. And this score is growing from 1.5% of the whole FP participation. It seems a small number, but considering how many participation, there are something like 10,000 participants divided by more than 1,000 provinces. So 1.5 is one of the highest score in the whole analysis. And this performance is growing with a quite significant rate. Brussels is clearly the center of Belgium. Brussels represents in FP5 it was 1.5, while the whole Belgium was 3.6. So Brussels is really the major center. What we can see is that at the beginning, Brussels was quite good it was good mainly in the field of energy, less in biotech. At the end of the period, Brussels is good basically in all the sectors, with more or less the same rate. So 2.6 in all the sectors. What is interesting is to observe the two other districts, Leuven and Nivelles, that mainly relate to the two universities of KUL and UCL. And apparently they are more or less stable with a slight increase in terms of FP participation. But what is interesting is asymmetric trends. Leuven is growing in energy and environment, in participation in FP energy and environment, but decreasing in biotech. When we look at Nivelles, we have exactly the opposite dynamic. It's something symmetric that might suggest the exist of a specialization in terms of research area.
Professor moved from one, you know.
Can be. That's what is interesting is also the case of Halle-Vilvoorde, no university there, because but the role of firms is quite significant, and even if they start from a very low level, 0.1 is the lowest one within the Brussels research system, but they arrived, okay, still 0.1, but if we compare in terms of increase, they were able to increase their FP participation. We will see absolute figures later on. These are the key results, with all the absolute numbers in terms of participation. And you can see I used FP5 and FP7, so it's a bit easier to understand the dynamics. And you can see the four districts, Brussels, Halle-Vilvoorde, Leuven, and Nivelles, and all the 7 actors classified in our exercise. Brussels is by far the core of the Brussels research system in terms of FP participation, which is our indicator, and all the typologies of actors are present in the Brussels capital regions, while it is not the case for other districts out of the Brussels capital regions. The second core is Leuven in terms of participation. The major increase and the good performance is mainly determined by the increasing role of European association. Their share in the whole participation is dramatically growing. Their role from 33 projects to 71, even if the total number of participation is different, but they've been able to double the participation in FP project, playing a more and more proactive role in this dimension. There is also an increasing role for firms, mainly in Halle-Vilvoorde and partially also in Nivelles. It's true that absolute numbers are not very high, because we're speaking about 7-10 projects, but still it's interesting to observe the fact that firms located out of the Brussels capital regions tend to be more and more involved in R&D projects at the European scale. Finally, a negative result is the reducing role for universities. When we saw it and we started discussing with colleagues, say, hey, no, that's a bad signal for us, because VUB is part of this reducing share of FP participation. We were not sure to be happy, but at least it's the same with Nivelles and Leuven. So all the three, we say, okay, that's at least it's not the VUB going reducing the role, but this is a signal. It's something that we should consider. There is a shift in how the Brussels research system participate in the FP. There is a bit more firms, a bit less universities. That's open to discussion. What is important to consider from a methodological point of view, it is not possible to understand the role played by each actor within each project. European association, most of the time they don't carry out research. They often provide support in terms of coordination, administrative support, dissemination activities, which are also part of the FP project, but they don't have researcher doing activities. And unfortunately, it is not possible to understand how the role of each one. Second aspect is that in the database, the number of observations from FP5 to FP7 reduced. That's just a statistical aspect. I try to stay in time. This is the synthesis of the performance of the Brussels research system in terms of participation. What we can see is that the two performance, if we divide European actors and Belgian actors, both are growing. If we consider just the Belgian actors in the Brussels research system as a whole, with the 4 districts, we can see that there is an increase in the rate of participation from 1.4 to 0.9. It's still an increase. So still a good performance. When we were discussing during the coffee break the fact that Paris is reducing, Brussels is growing. So still a good indicator. Clearly, what we can see, the role of European actors is much more significant. They represent the real added value, the real characteristics that are not located elsewhere. The Commission and the European Association are in Brussels. The lobbies, the European lobbies are here and not in, let's say, Vilnius or Helsinki. Nothing against Vilnius or Helsinki. They are very good, but we have to know the specificity of Brussels. And their contribution in terms of FP participation is growing a lot and with a very significant rate. What are the participation with the rest of Belgium? First, FP is supposed not to be for national research project. It should promote cooperation between Brussels research system with other research actors out of Belgium. But it's possible that the 2 Belgian actors participate in a joint research program that might involve 14, 15 actors, and 2 of them comes from Belgium. That's absolutely, we are not breaking the rules of the Commission, so it's okay. Clearly there are few participation, not many changes. The only interesting role is that, again, European actors are playing more and more active roles in involving other Belgian partnership. If we look at the rate of European actors, that during FP5 was just about 17%, arrives to over 30%, it means that they are really involving Belgian actors in the participation. Even if we know that this program shouldn't be just for Belgo-Belgians research. Yeah, that's the... in terms of geographical distribution, so we look out of Belgium. We divided country in 4 categories. The other EU15, so it should be EU14 because we are excluding Belgium, but it means the, let's say, the old member states. Here, the new member states, so all the countries that joined the EU after 2004, Poland, Romania, Croatia, etc. Associated countries, those that are part of FP but not part of the European Union. This means mainly Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, Turkey. INCO means international cooperation, so out of Europe, China, Russia, Japan, etc. What we can see is that there is the rate of cooperation from the FP5, which means late 90s, to FP7, which means today, is moving towards new member states. if you want, this is not surprising because it was the period of accession of those and integration of those countries into Europe. What is interesting is to observe is that mainly European actors that are catching new partners towards those countries. They are playing an active role to establish research connection with partners in new member states. Belgian governments, what is interesting to observe is that governments of Belgium and university were already quite active in connection with new member states. So if the European actors are now integrating them actively, those linkages were already existing thanks to government and universities. So for this reason, we don't see a significant increase. If we look at international cooperation, so out of Europe, this is mainly boosted by European bodies, Belgian government, and Belgian universities. This might seem everybody, but no. Firms are not involved. They are more for them it's more difficult to establish longer contacts, on longer distance. For them it's more difficult to establish this kind of linkages for common R&D projects. This is the most complicated table, but it's one of the last ones, so don't worry. If we look what are the major geographical partners for each kind of actors? Does the major partners overlap for each actor? So if the European Commission, for example, that is formally localized in Brussels, is always participating with Paris, but Belgian governments are always participating with Sofia, these don't overlap, okay? So when Brussels goes to Paris, it can go through the European bodies, through European association or universities. When they are looking to where to establish different network, are we speaking about the same geography, the same network of cooperation? Most of the time, the answer is yes. We are going towards the major center. As we can see, all the values are quite high. What is interesting to observe is the role that for the European bodies and Brussels universities tend to go to the same places, tend to go to have the same network of partnership. If there is a good relationship between, let's say, Brussels and Munich in Germany, this is thanks to both university and European bodies. But there is a very interesting exception, which is represented by governments of Belgium. Governments are able to establish networks for knowledge and research that are significantly different from other partners. Basically, we could say that is mainly towards other capital cities, because governments tend to participate with other governments. And we should have the map. This is the general map. You can see for all the projects where are the major partners for the Brussels capital regions. You can see a lot, but there is Belgium in yellow, so it's excluded. Red dots are in the top 5 percentile. That is the measure we use as a threshold in terms of partnership. Yellow dots are 85, 95 percentile, so what we say the second ranking. And black dots are all the other where there are some partnership. This is for the total. I selected the 3 kind of partnerships. You have in the top right the partnership for Belgian governments. Larger dots are the major partners. And I can turn off this light. That could help you to see a bit better. So we have Belgian governments, University and Public Research Institute, and European Association. You can see that there are some differences. For example, the Netherlands here it's a major partner for the Brussels research system. Not surprising. Here, it's close, we speak the same language, and it's fine. But for some other areas, like look, for example, at the UK, the geography is a bit more complicated. In general, there are two major partners that are London and Oxford, big university, excellent research, so not surprising. But this is not the case for example, governments. For governments, the second major partner is no longer Oxford, but is Edinburgh, capital of Scotland. And again, you can recognize more or less all over Europe, all the other European capital. For universities, you can recognize again the capitals, but then also the universities that are spread around München, etc. Okay, this gives a bit of the idea which kind of linkages. I know the timing, I'm going to the end. These are the conclusion. Two major conclusions. Brussels research system is a competitive system, whether we consider FP participation as an indicator, as we said in the first part, is not the only indicator, is what we use for our analysis. And Belgian actors are active in the competition to get, and Belgian actors located in the Brussels research system are competitive in terms of FP competition. But there is a second role which is highly specific for Brussels, which is the role of European association. They're providing linkages in terms of knowledge participating in FP project. They have their network. They are able to catch new partners, mainly from new member states. And this is something specific to Brussels. Being the European capital, even if there are, the discussion on the European capital, there is also Luxembourg, Strasbourg formally, but by fact, this is also a research capital in terms of capacity to create linkages. Next steps, just to conclude, to compare if this is Brussels, how are other cities that are comparable? We selected as case studies Copenhagen, Madrid, and Vienna that have more or less similar size. Other capital cities, in Vienna we have the UN, that is also an international actor that is not exactly the same as the EU, but still interesting. Madrid, strong linkages with Latin America, so another center for knowledge. And Copenhagen, well, is one of the most interesting case. And clearly, we examined just 3 research teams, energy, environment, and biotech, and we don't want to make conclusion for other disciplines. This is just to have clear what is the dimension of our analysis. This is some open question for the discussion, but I would ask to our guests if their reaction.